And we are back with another Black with No Cream podcast. New episode every single Wednesday and Sunday. I'm your host, Ben Haggerty, aka Ben Real Verse World, and today is episode 187. Today's guest is creative director and photographer Ashley Osborn. She is best known for touring with acts like Jessie J, All Time Low, and Bring Me the Horizon. She's photographed for Billie Elish, Taylor Swift, the Jonas Brothers. She's worked with major brands such as Vans, and most recently, she shot the cover artwork for Selena Gomez's latest album. In this episode, we discuss the history of her touring, her struggles with creative depression and overcoming the anxiety of social media pressure, and the reason why she decided to stop touring completely to focus on herself and build a home base in LA. We also dive into the Vans shoe campaign she directed, where she was able to collaborate with some of her favorite artists and major festivals. Her mission as an artist to portray women in music as powerful and as beautiful as they can be. And lastly, she shares her entire story behind how she was able to shoot Selena Gomez's album artwork in 60 seconds using just one standard light bulb to light the entire scene. This story is insane. We have a fucking awesome episode for you today. Also, before we get started, I wanted to let you guys know about something exciting we just started here at Black with No Cream. I've been wanting to find a way to connect with our podcast audience and our Black with No Cream community as a whole on a deeper level. So I decided to set up a phone number where I can text all my creators directly. This is going to be an awesome line of communication between me and you. I plan on sending out weekly motivation from the podcast, creator tips, updates on the YouTube videos, contests, and all of that. And to be honest, I would love to hear your feedback on the episodes and give you a chance to have a say in future podcast topics. So anyways, shoot me a text. I put a link in the description that will auto load my number into your contacts, and then you can just shoot me a text that way. Or if you're a person that likes to manually type things, go for it. Please be my guest. Here's the number. It's 319-209-9041. So shoot me a text, tell me what kind of creator you are, and I will log you into my contacts. I can't wait to hear what you think about the podcast. And that's it for the update today. But if it's your first time tuning into the podcast, you are probably wondering,
what the fuck is Black with No Cream?
Great question. Black with No Cream is the illest educational resource for content creators fueled by caffeine. Or at least I take my coffee black with no cream, but you can drink or not drink whatever caffeine you fuck with and still be a part of our community. We have thousands of members from all around the world working together by sharing content, asking for feedback, passing tips and tricks along to one another with the goal of pushing each other to become the best motherfucking content creators on earth. And you can join our private group if you want to by going to bwnc.com/join. We would love to fucking have you. Please join. And without further ado, I bring to you my episode with Ashley Osborn and the most epic podcast intro ever created. Right motherfucking now. Ladies and gentlemen, Ashley Osborn. We got DJ Horns for you today. DJ Horns. What are you drinking? Tea? You're drinking tea on Black with No Cream?
Yeah. I already had so much coffee.
All right.
I know.
We'll let it slide.
I had an oat milk latte today, 4 shots, and I made another batch at home. I just finished it. I have to go to tea, otherwise I will die. I will literally fall over and die.
I've been trying to get an interview with you for damn near 2 years, I would say. Shout out to my boy Andrew Doyle, who is early podcast guest. Yeah, your dad. He's the
my
best.
Dad.
He runs all of our merch for Black with No Cream too. And Andrew was like, "Yo, you got to get this girl on here. She's the shit. She's a crazy photographer. Blah blah blah." And I looked you up, and your work is nuts for photography. You are through the roof. You're killing it. Like,
that means so much coming from you, though. Are you kidding?
No, I'm glad that you finally bowed down to us and let us have this moment. Thank you.
Rightfully so.
Yo, so I mean, you covered so much ground, and I think what was cool of me trying to convince you to get on the podcast was we talked about, I don't know if we want to start off with this or not, but like creative depression being like a super real thing that you've dealt with. And I said that we've talked about it a million times on this podcast. I think it's a great subject. And what made you so nervous to want to get on this podcast?
Yeah, dude. We're getting right into it.
I am getting into it. Yes, I know. But Doyle would tell me that you were great, and then he told me, I think you used to. Did you do instruct like course, like I don't know what you would call it, but like a live photography class? Did you ever do something like that? Am I mixing this up with something else? I
did a seminar in LA, and then I partnered with Vans to do a couple seminars in Chicago where like I call home. But yeah, right. I have this like affinity for teaching. I want to be a teacher one day. Like I love teaching kids and helping kids learn so much. So that I did a lot of that. And I think that, that was like right before you had reached out to me the first time.
Right, because he said, he's like, you gotta check her out. I was like, hell yeah. And then we want to get you on here to do the story, and we'll do your full story at some point. But now we finally get you on here to teach creators how to be ill, like yourself. And when you do those classes, right, like you go up and is there do you have the same anxiety when you're doing that type of like one-on-one real interaction? Or is there something that separates it from you being nervous to talk about your, I guess, accolades on like podcast form?
I mean, I think in real life, I don't get scared to talk about it. I think there's just this pressure of like acknowledging, and I even feel uncomfortable saying this, but acknowledging that these kids, so the first seminar I did, I charged like $25 and it sold out immediately. And it was insane. And all the money went to mental health. It went to Hope for the Day.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And
cool.
That was really, really fun that I got to do that. And I think there's this pressure of like knowing these kids paid to show up and I don't want to like let them down. I want to make sure they leave feeling like they actually took something away from the process because, you know, there's a lot of pressure. They paid money to be there. And I just want to make it really inclusive and really like real and honest. And the first one I did was in LA, and that one was about mental health. And it literally just turned into like everyone in the room crying and all of us talking about anxiety and our feelings. And it was the coolest, most magical thing I've ever gotten to do. And yeah, I mean, that was our whole topic of conversation was that struggle with stagnance and how real that depression gets. And it's so interesting that we're talking about this now in a time of complete stagnance, where every creative I know is struggling a lot, and including myself, you know, like I'm so grateful to be busy right now. And I don't take it for granted, but there are definitely times of where I do feel really stagnant and immediately I'm like, oh, I'm a failure, or people are going to forget about me, or all this like hard, I've literally busted my ass the last 10 years to build these connections. And I worry about that all the time. I worry about this feeling of just becoming irrelevant and like all the hard work I've done, just like not mattering anymore. I don't know why or where that comes from, but I find it really similar. And I feel like you'll get this to that feeling of, I used to struggle so much with going on the road and then coming home and just falling completely into a hole of just a disastrous hole. And I find a lot of people who tour also feel that way, where they, you know, they're on tour and every minute of your life is planned out. And then you come home and you're just like, now what? I don't know what to do. And now we're all just like forced into this stillness, and everyone is struggling so much right now with it. And it has to be addressed. Like, I'm concerned about people's mental health after this, especially the people who aren't creatives, who work 9-to-5 jobs and then they're forced to be home. And then now they're like suddenly back into this like hour-and-a-half commute every day and be in the office for 8 to 10 hours. And like it's just this period of time I think is so transformative, but it's so important. And like this issue is something that needs to be addressed immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Shit,
that was a whole rant. The level
great.
Of concern I have for society right now is like what's driving my anxiety, to be honest. I'm just like constantly worried about everyone that I know.
It sounds like you're a really caring person. That's what that chalks up to be.
Thank you. But it's, you know, I think it's just like creatives. I've always had this philosophy that creatives are just built differently. I mean, we're literally created. I always say like creatives are created, and our purpose on this planet is to see the world differently and experience the world differently. And I think there's something really beautiful about that, and about how empathetic we are as creatives, but that also has this like added thing of like, oh, we are really empathetic. We do feel energy. Like we do pick up on all these things. So we're all like fucked right now. We're all struggling a lot. It's so real.
When you know, before this whole COVID shit, what would be the balance of you on the road versus off the road? Like, cause you've toured several times. I don't know how many tours you've done, but
a lot. And I miss it so much every day. But I kind of like, I was on the road from pretty much like end of 2013. I did my first real full US tour, end of 2013. And then I was out on the road pretty consistently through the end of 2016. And then I had gotten really, really sick. And that's like a whole other journey, other journey we can go down later. And then I couldn't really shoot after I got sick. So I kind of had to reteach myself to shoot. So I had this like whole kind of like year break. And then at the end of 2017, I started touring again because I had met an artist that like completely changed my life and inspired me. And I was like, I have to go back on the road. So I kind of had played around with tour like 2017, 2018. And then I ended up back on the road with All Time Low in 2018, which was amazing. And I spent most of that year with them. And then 2019 came around and they were slowing down. And I just kind of felt this like need to make a real home base in LA, because I had taken the jump to move here after I got really ill, because the surgeon that I wanted to have to do my surgery was at UCLA. So that was why I actually moved out here. But I knew that I was going to end up here eventually anyway. And I think I hit this point in 2019 where I was like, okay, I want more. Like, I want to do press photos and editorial. And I've done the tour thing, and I just felt creatively really exhausted by the idea of being on the road again. Because on the road, my mental health also like takes a hit, because I have no time to self-care or really focus on my day-to-day life or my home life. So I felt this big urge to take a step in a new direction. And I kind of pulled myself off the road and just started like busting my ass in LA and taking meetings and like trying to just grow and network and just like evolve as a creative, take a step in a new direction and focus on the next chapter of my life, which has been amazing. And I've loved every minute of it.
And I think for people who are listening right now, you kind of get a glimpse of, from 2013 to pretty much like a year ago, it's like you're constantly traveling new cities. You're on someone else's agenda. You're working for someone else full time. As much as you want to think like people have 9 to 5s, you're 24 hours a day on tour. You never know when some wild shit's going to happen that you want to go capture or whatever, or you're editing when shows are done, you're on the bus. It's just exhausting. So for people to come off the road and to try to adjust back, especially if you have no one else curating your schedule when you're home, right? Like if you come home, you might be home for like 5-6 months before another tour happens, before you try to kind of stay settled. But it is, I think that's easy because we talked about this on the phone the other day, where we're like, it's so defeating when you're constantly on with one person, right? Say an artist, and you're touring with that artist and their fans are starting to follow you because you're being shared. And then you build this like social identity. And then if you stop talking about that, they stop giving a fuck. And then you feel worthless because people aren't caring about the content you're sharing, which is the dumbest shit in the world. And that's what I fucking hate about all this shit, is that it makes people like you or me, whoever, I know so many people that deal with this, especially right now. Oh my God, it's quarantine. No one can go outside. So definitely don't go outside and start posting more content of you continuing to work, because then you look like a dickhead because you're not staying inside and being quarantined.
So much pressure in social media.
But what do you post? They post throwback shit. And now everyone's just trying to stay relevant during this time. So they feel like they have to post something, because if they don't, then no one's thinking about them, or no one's caring about them, or no one knows that. But when we were talking about it the other day, it's like, yo, to be honest, if you look at it from that aspect of like a brand and how brands care about you, you're like, oh, I have this much engagement, I do this much on my posting, and this is how many likes I get and all this shit. Cool. That's what brands want to hear. But if you're not fucking around with brands, it doesn't really matter anymore. As long as your feed is incredible with your work, which it is, then the only thing that matters for is the next time you bump into someone and they're talking about whatever and you kick them your resume, which is your Instagram, and like, oh shit, and then they're spending a ton of money on you because your feed looks great. They don't give a fuck about likes and shit.
And it happens all the time. Like those interactions happen so frequently, especially living in LA. But yeah, there is this like huge added pressure of, again, irrelevancy, and like so much of my following being from, when I toured with Pierce the Veil and Paris and Bring Me the Horizon and All Time Low, and like all these fans that have such diehard, beautiful, incredible fan bases that I love. Like I love those kids, and I see so much of myself in those kids, which is why I also feel this pressure of like making sure I also serve that community too, and like inspire and uplift that community of like young women who are really passionate about music. Cause like, that's where I come from. Like when I was 12 and 13, like I was that girl going to shows and like wanted to be in the front row because I wanted to take pictures with my shitty point and shoot camera. Right. Like that was literally me. So like, I do feel a lot of pressure to like serve those kids, cause I fucking was that kid. And like, I will forever back those kids, because I think that they're so important, and they're so important to the music industry. Like people can make jokes all the time about, this is a whole other rant, but people like talk shit on like the concept of like fangirls and like that whole ideal, when really like that is like what the music industry is based off of, like those fans who care so passionately and are following the photographers of the bands that they love, because they want to like be as close to these artists that like inspire them on a day-to-day basis, you know? And like, that's why those young women and those young fans came to me. It was because they saw another woman on tour with the band that they love, which is very rare, especially like 5 years ago, that was like literally non-existent.
Right.
And yeah, like I want to serve that community, and I want to like be a safe space for that community still. But you know, there is that battle of like, if I'm not posting photos of those bands, then like they're not going to care, or they're going to unfollow, or you know, like there's Jessie J fans that come to me and like want to see photos of her and like don't care. And I know we talked about this too with like the Beehive and like things like that, where it's like you want to serve all your followers, but also like what is that like, where is that boundary of like, am I doing this for me anymore, or am I doing this for like literally everyone else? Like,
God, what am
I proud of? What do I want to be sharing? And like the work that I'm the most proud of is like usually not what anyone that follows me cares about. So it's like, it's really weird. It's just,
so what's the, you know, you told me that you are in a much better place than you were when I originally tried to get you on the podcast, right? So you finished touring. I don't know. And obviously you're going to come in and do a full interview on this podcast at some point, whenever this shit's over with. Okay. The full story will be told. And I want to tell this whole surgery thing, that whatever happened there, I don't know anything about it, but I'm assuming after all that transition and you've been home and you started taking meetings and you started developing new clients, is that what, by being kind of local and building your foundation here, did that help change a lot of your perception or help with your creative depression?
Changed everything. Yeah. Yeah, because I started going back to therapy. I started getting into a real routine at home. I started having a real friend group again. Like I started having more consistency in my life. A lot changed, you know? It's like, when you're going literally 100 miles an hour all the time, there's no like literal way to ground yourself in that moment. So when it was really hard at first to make that transition, but once I saw the benefits of that, from like everything from my mental health to my bank account to my home situation to like, I think really when I started to truly heal and get better was at the end of 2019, when I moved into this new apartment that I'm living in now. Yeah. Which, to be honest, I've like never said this out loud, but I've never once in my life felt more at home ever than I do right now. I never had a consistent like home when I was little. I never just like had a, you know, like I don't want to get into my backstory of my parents and like my childhood, but like I moved around a lot. Like I just never really had a consistent home that I felt really, really safe in. And now I have that, and it's completely changed my life. And like my apartment, like I don't ever want to leave it. And I think like having a really safe space where I could actually like nest and like make a home and like buy things for my room and like buy furniture for the first time in my life, I think like made a huge difference. Because all those years of touring, I was like sleeping on floors. Like I paid rent to sleep on a couch for a year. Like I literally was just like bouncing around. I was living in a basement. I lived in all these crazy places, and I was living out of suitcases. And even when I moved to LA, I literally moved to LA with 4 suitcases. Like that was my move. So it's just like, it's been a really long journey, but at this point in my life, you know, I just turned 28. I've never been more proud of myself and my accomplishments. And I've never felt more grounded and in tune with like who I am as a human, as a creative, like literally everything. So I think that completely changed my life, just having this consistency. And I kind of battle with that all the time of like, will I ever tour again? Will I ever like, because now I get so much joy out of like these random jobs that'll come up that'll just be like for the weekend, where I'll leave for a few days and then I get to come home, and it's like everything to me. Like I love that. And the idea of like going out and touring with an artist on a full record cycle again, I just don't know if that's like the healthiest thing for me right now, which is really hard. It's really hard.
But I also think you're in a position, and this is kind of the best part of all this shit, is that as you develop in your creative career, it's like you go out and you do these long trench tours, like you're just in the trenches, going hammer, sleeping on floors, doing whatever it takes to develop your name and develop your skill set and build your relationships with these artists, whatever. Cool. You've done all that for years and years and years and years. And now you're in a position where it is when those times come around, you kind of have the luxury of saying like, I can't do a full tour, but I could go out for, let me pop out and capture and make a story out of this or whatever it is, where you're able to pick and choose your battles, which is like, we all say yes to everything.
Do you feel like that? Have you felt that, like kind of what I'm feeling with touring? Like, yes. How do you feel about it when you like have to go out for prolonged periods of time? Or do you still like want to do that?
Well, I like,
tables have turned.
No, I like, and I'll answer it shortly because it's the same about me. But I think I like being on the road. I love traveling and exploring shit and just kind of like pushing my body all the way, like just to see how far and how much I can pull off.
Just like adrenaline rush. It really is for like 3 months straight.
Yeah. But the problem is that when you're gone, as soon as you leave for that tour, real life freezes. And I am a person that juggles like multiple things at once. And I'm sure you are too. It's like when you're trying to develop like a new relationship with the brand and you want to work with that brand, maybe you do one job, but then you leave for 6 months to be on tour and they want to hit you up during the tour and you're trying to figure out how to balance that shit. That becomes super stressful and exhausting. And you also, touring, I just think there's never going to be enough money in it to make me want to continue to do it the older I get.
The same way.
But I think it is about you knock it off the bucket list. Cool. Now what else is interesting to you? And that doesn't change what kind of creator you are. That shouldn't make people think like, oh, they're boring now to me because they won't hit the road. It's like, you don't know what that's like. You don't know what hitting the road is like, especially when you start out. It's nuts. But I do think
literally crazy
having a home and like having your place. Like I'm excited for you to have that because there is something about being able to like check out. Like you can't check out if you're at your homie's house or you're sleeping on the homie's couch or you're on a tour bus because everyone's just being like, hey, we're here to create. That's our job. So let's create. Oh, it's 1 a.m. Let's go out and fucking do this thing. And you're like, I mean, I'll do it because I'm here. But if you were able to go home, that means you're like off the clock. Like, let me be off the clock for a little bit and fucking reset my brain so I can attack tomorrow healthy, like in a healthy manner or whatever. You know what I mean? It's interesting to think about.
Yeah. No, it's literally, it's all I think about. It's all I think about. And I think, it's like, also, I think something really interesting that you said is like working with a client. And then when you leave, like I would find that like leaving made me anxious because I was like, if I got hit up for a job and I had to say no, it was like, it would ruin my whole week. I would feel absolutely terrible about it. And then I would be like, oh, that client's going to forget about me. They're not going to want to hire me again because I'm losing this opportunity. So I know it's not true, but it's like, it sits with me really hard. And I don't know why. I think,
do you think that your clients like to like, do you think the bigger brands that you work with, do you ever find that they almost like enjoy the fact that you've worked with the artists that you've worked with because then it makes them look really cool to their bosses when they bring someone like you in to be creative on a project? Because I've noticed that. So like I may be gone for so much time, but when I come back, they're fucking holding me by the shoulder, walking around. This is this person, he did this and this and this. And I'm just like, yeah, I did do that shit. That was cool. Does that make me keep getting these bags from you guys? Because I'm cool with that. It's like, no, it's interesting.
I feel that. And I definitely have that with one of my bosses. This year, what was really weird, total side note, is like a month or like 3 weeks before quarantine started, I had a call with this agency like last year called Black Box. They're like this amazing marketing agency in LA. And the owner called me a year later out of literally nowhere and was like, hey, Ashley, like, I know this is really random. This is Livia from Black Box. Like, I need to hire you. And I like had a meeting with her, immediately was like, I love you. I need to work with you. You are everything I want to be in the world. Like she is everything I could ever want to be as a leader, as a woman in music, everything. And I feel that support with her, especially because I am part-time kind of creative direction and consulting for them. And she's just like, I never want you to have to say no to work. If you have a shoot with a client, like I would rather you miss this meeting and me be able to say like, no, my amazing creative director is doing a photo shoot with X client right now. And like, I can be really, like, she's really proud of that. So I definitely do think it is an asset. Like it can be an asset to, have to miss things because of other opportunities. I think it's just the way that you handle it with that client, and always just handling it really carefully. But most of the time people understand. I've always found that like if somebody wants to work with you, they want to work with you, and like they will usually, if it's possible, work around whatever it is that you have going on to make it happen, because they reached out to you for a reason. So I think, you know, I do need to own that a little bit more and be a proud of that.
With like being in LA now and having some time to be here and kind of adjust and get your, you know, work on, like, obviously I want to talk about the Selena Gomez album artwork cover that you shot at some point, but are there other projects that you've worked on that allowed you to stay here or maybe do quicker travels that you were excited about over the last like year, 2 years?
Yes, so many. Specifically, this job that I had with Vans last year was like my favorite thing I've literally ever gotten to do. They had this campaign. Vans is like, first of all, I've literally worn Vans since I was like 8 years old. So the fact that I even get to work with them now is like
the coolest.
Literally the coolest shit in the world to me. Like, I will never forget calling my mom and being like, Mom, I got a job. I'm going to work for Vans at South by Southwest. And she was like, oh my God. Like it's that deep rooted in me. So getting to work with them is everything. But last year I got asked to kind of be an influencer, but also kind of project manage and do kind of creative direction and shoot content for one of their campaigns. It was like this Comfy Kush wear test. So they had this new shoe come out, and we shot content at Warped Tour, Riot Fest, and Voodoo Festival. And Warped Tour, we had Mark Hoppus, Frank Iero from My Chem, CKY, and then like we just had the craziest people help us with this campaign. Travis McCoy, Anthony Green, like all these artists that I've looked up to forever. Adam Lazar from Taking Back Sunday. It was amazing. So I kind of got to like head that and help the artist relations person there, Brie, who is literally the best person in the world, help her reach out to artists and kind of build this campaign with them and help them make these connections. And it just felt really good to like facilitate that and kind of have a project where it made me realize that all my hard work the last several years and all these connections I built really paid off, because I got to like hire all of my musician friends to like wear the shoes and then shoot with these artists at these festivals that I've gone to for years. And Voodoo specifically, I've always really wanted to attend. So it was just incredible to like be able to do all these different things. And that project was kind of like what really inspired me to want to get more into creative direction and just like working on more like advertising campaigns and really pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Like it was just so fucking awesome to like go to all 4 of these festivals the last year of Warped Tour and like work on this beautiful campaign. It was so cool. Like I'm so proud of that.
So did you team up with like the artist photographers, or were you the one photographing?
I was shooting everything.
So you shoot everything.
Mm-hmm.
So what
we'd
was the
like
idea?
get
Like
them
seeing
shoes
them?
and what?
It was like seeing them with the product on or whatever.
Yeah. So it was like basically documenting these artists wearing this Comfy Kush shoe at a festival and just showing like how literally I'm not even being paid anymore, but how comfortable the shoes are to wear in a festival setting, and just like showing these artists really candidly, like shooting Anthony Green sitting on the back of his trailer and Travis McCoy like drinking whiskey in his green room, just like showing all these artists like in their natural environment wearing the shoe. And it was just like a really cool lifestyle campaign and a really, really awesome concept. So that to me was just like, I love getting into shit like that. And I got to work with Marriott on a campaign too for their hotel company, Aloft. So I got to go to Dublin and Chicago, and it was about like, we had like Dermot Kennedy in Dublin, and he played a show in a hotel lobby, like 10 stories up, overlooking the city with like his closest fans and like family and friends. And it was just amazing. It was like about bringing artists back to their hometown and showing like how real these connections are, and like kind of honoring where you're from as a creative, and just like getting to work on that type of shit is so cool. And then I'm gone for like a weekend, and then I get to come home, and it's like, I did so much and I got paid fairly, and then I get to come home and like be back in my house and decompress from that, where, you know, tour is not like that. Again, long tangent, but I love getting to work on stuff like that.
When you're working with brands like Marriott, like how does the connection happen for you? Are you signed to an agency, or are you solo dolo? So how do you partner with brands?
I'm totally solo. this girl who's now become a really good friend, Sarah Ruby, was working for a loft, and she was doing all the social media. And she like was the one kind of doing all the creative and created their grid and stuff for the hotel. So she reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm doing this project. I'd love to like have you as one of the photographers. And it was supposed to be one date, and then it ended up turning into 3 dates, potentially 4 dates. And then China got canceled because of COVID. And then I ended up not being able to go to Mexico because I had another client in LA come up that I really wanted to shoot for, which ended up being Selena. So I wanted to stay in LA and do Selena, which ended up being the day I shot the album cover. So I was like, had a feeling that I shouldn't do that job. So it was hard having to tell a loft kind of what was going on, but they were just like, Sarah was like, I mean, duh, you have to do, like, you have to shoot that. Right. You need to go do that.
See, and now she's probably going back to her people and being like, yo, sorry, but this doesn't work, because she's shooting Selena Gomez right now.
But that's like an important lesson too, because it's like those brand relationships to me are so much more than like a brand. Like I just feel like all of those opportunities that have come up for me have just turned into like really beautiful friendships and connections. And I value that so much. And, Sarah's not even at Marriott anymore, but I know that like somewhere down the line we'll get to create together again. Right. And like, I'm already trying to like help get her on some of my projects doing design work. So it's like, I just think all those relationships are so important, because you just never know where anyone's going to end up or be working down the line, or like when you can help one of them out and give them an opportunity to shine. Like, I just think it's really important to.
What's like advice that you would give to photographers when dealing with the beginning of a relationship with the potential brand? Maybe it's like what would you do to prepare to be found? Or maybe it's like you've already kind of got the connect, and maybe you bumped into this person at a party and you want to try to impress them with your work. What would you do to go about kind of pitching yourself? Have you experienced that much, or do you have any advice for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest advice with that is just that, like, I don't think you should look at meeting people like seeing dollar signs. I think that so much of my work has come, especially the last few years, so much of my work has just come from like real, genuine friendships. And like for me, I've learned my lesson and like have signed NDAs, but I can say that like I have gotten those really big brand jobs that were like so much money. And they just came to me out of nowhere, and then I did them, and I realized really quickly that like everyone that was a part of the project kind of sucks, and like they're not empowering me. They don't really care that I'm there. They just needed a photographer, and like I don't want to put myself in those positions again. So when it comes to like working with brands, to me, it's just like I would rather not make the money and like not have to work in a really triggering, like awful situation. And I'd rather just like really get to know the people that are hiring you. Like, ask people questions about themselves, like, and not in a kiss ass way, but in like a really genuine way. Like, I'm just always very honest with people. And like every time I have a conversation with a brand, I explain to them that like, I am really passionate about what I do. I love creating. But my biggest priority is that I work with people who are going to value my work, value my time, and like truly want to collaborate and like create a really healthy environment to do that in. Because I will not put myself in another situation that's like just not enjoyable. Because what's the fucking point? Like, money is great, but like if you make a lot of money doing a really terrible job, then like what did you really get out of that besides the check? Like, you didn't make any connections. You didn't like enjoy the experience. Like, I try not to look at work like that anymore, because it just has never benefited me or suited me in the past. So like now I really just genuinely try to get to know everyone that hires me. And I've said no to jobs because I didn't really vibe with the people that reach out to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've had calls where I'm like, these people, like, they just don't really get where I'm coming from. They don't really know much about the creative, like, anything I'm talking about. I can tell they just like kind of like needed photographers when they reached out to me. Like, I just don't want to put myself in those positions. Granted, I don't want that to come off like I'm really privileged and I can say no to work. Like, there's definitely been times where I really could have used that money, and I'm not, like, I'm paying off student debt. I'm paying off medical debt. Like, I am not by any means this like wealthy white girl. Like, I have a lot of financial obligations that I'm still paying off in my life. And it's just like, to me, it's not worth my energy if people are not like empowering me. Like, what's the point?
Right.
It's just like, money isn't worth it. If you say no to things that don't suit you, now I see money as money and abundance to me are just an exchange of energy. And I just feel like if you give your energy to somebody just to get money back, that's just like, there's no point. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my rant about that. So I feel like with brands, just be really careful. Like, yes, the contracts are real, and like I would hate to end up in a situation where I'm contractually obligated to do like 3 events for a client and they're just terrible. And then I'm stuck doing 3 events with people who are not nice.
Yeah. Or just want like,
it's not worth it.
The worst is when you're brought on and they want you to be this cool creative person that you are. And then you get there and they're like, we need 18 of these things delivered by Monday and this needs to be done. And it's just the most cookie cutter shit where you're like, what? This is so dumb. Why are you having me do this when we just had this discussion over here where you wanted me for me, but now you want me to be this person, or you want me to act like I can create like, it's like,
doesn't feel good.
Nah, it doesn't.
Doesn't feel good.
When you made that decision to dip out on that last job and then ended up on, was it Selena's music video shoot that you were on set for, where the album artwork came to be, or is this?
Yeah. It was the video for Boyfriend that she just put out.
Right.
And I got hit up for that after I had made the other agreement, and it was a really hard decision, but I'm glad I made it. And again, like, I had that really close relationship with the client. So the client was like, congratulations, like, yes, you have to take this other job. And I didn't even tell her what it was. I just said, this opportunity came up for a client that I really, really care about and want to work with. And I'm really sorry, but I think that I have to not do this event. And they were like, absolutely, don't worry about it. Like, we'll figure it out. All good. And I was
also, it's like,
thank you.
Hotels are always going to be there because they're hotels. But artists change their fucking mind and who they are every day. So I would like to hop in on this while I have the door open.
Yeah, and it's just like, for me, my biggest priority in the world is like, I just want to empower the most powerful women in music so they can empower millions of other people. Like, that's always been my dream. So like, I can't even fucking believe that I'm in a position now in my life where I'm working with all these powerful women in music. Like, I have literally worked with every woman that I've ever looked up to, basically. And that's so fucking cool. Crazy. And like, I don't take that for granted. So when an opportunity like that comes knocking, I literally will drop everything, because it's like everything to me. I just can't even fucking believe that this is my life sometimes. Like, I'm just so thankful. It's wild.
It is really wild. Crazy. Do you feel
it's really wild?
How does it feel for you?
I'm sure you feel that too, though. Like, what is your life?
But I mean, it's just, I feel like in a male-driven industry that I feel like everyone's safe to say that it's this male dominant shit. Everyone always is. I see it all the time in the comments, even on our podcast. So like, talk to more women. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to even meet more women in the game. It's been my first introduction was just a bunch of dudes. So when I started the podcast, I'm like, who do I know that would talk on the podcast that's in film? This dude, this dude, this dude, this dude. And then I'm like, okay, what women do I know in this shit? And it was hard to discover it. Now it's become like really, I've found this access to like so many incredible women that are talented as fuck, killing this shit.
I love that you're even aware of that. The fact that you're even thinking about it is
what would drive me nuts? It drove me nuts that it was like I can't remember who the first, who I had on the podcast first. That was a woman. Anyway, what I was getting at is that being a woman that is fighting in this male dominant space, right? It's not even fighting, just you're in this space that I feel like a lot of these jobs are just the bags are always handed to dudes by default, or they create their cliques and they have their own infrastructure where like the brands will always work with these cliques because they're all the cool people that everyone wants to be with. And rarely you see a woman mixed into that mix, right? Like that shit happens all the time. So
it's literally the truest thing that anyone has ever said. Yes.
But
I'm just out here on my own, in my own little island, living my life. And I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of that. I've never felt welcome in the boys club, and that's okay. I'm fine with it. But it does exist. And I love that you're just including women in what you do, because I think it's really amazing. And now more than ever, like so many people are aware of it and empowering women. And I think it's so fucking cool. But my whole like life goal is to just like make sure that every woman in music, every female artist feels beautiful, feels confident, feels empowered, and men too. Like, I just feel like I genuinely, I don't know how to say this. I genuinely feel like my superpower and my purpose in this life is to empower people and make them feel empowered so that they can empower like millions of other people, especially in this climate that the world is in right now. Like the world is literally falling apart. Like it's on fire. There's a fucking epidemic. Like it's so real. And like artists have always been the voice of the world. Like artists speak to everyone. Like it's the reach and the power that artists have is so beautiful to me. And I just like feel so fortunate to be behind so many powerful artists and women who are just genuinely trying to make a difference. And it's so beautiful. Like I'll never understand how it's become my job and like how I'm here, but I'm so grateful. And like, now I fully realize that is my purpose. Like, I just want to like help everyone. But I wasn't always like that.
Sure. And I feel I'm interested in like, you know, having shot, you shot some of the most powerful women in music and being able to do that and being able to even, all right, walk us through how did the album artwork come to be? You're on set to just do general behind the scenes of the music video. And then did you know that you were going to potentially be shooting cover art for Selena, or did that just happen randomly? Like what was kind of the day like?
It was kind of random. I mean, the most incredible thing in the world is that like all of the Interscope creative team, like most of them are women. And one of them pulled me aside and they were like, hey, I need you to get this shot of her tattoo sometime today, because it could be the album cover for the deluxe edition. And I was just like, what? Excuse me? But hey, like when you go into those jobs, you're given a day rate and you are usually bought out with an NDA and a contract. So I was paid very fairly. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's fucking go. Like, let's fucking go. Yeah. Let's get the shot. So it happened literally after they had finished filming, and they pulled her in really quick. Cause I was like, shit, we never got to do it. Pulled her in, we shot it. It took literally 60 seconds. I just like literally held my button down and like kept moving around like a psychopath for about 60 seconds, maybe. And I was like, okay, got it, done. Go ahead. You're good to go. And everyone was like, what, really? And I was like, yeah, like it's fine. It's good. We got it. Cause I was like, we were like in Silver Lake in the back of a fucking dry cleaner. It was like dimly lit. There was like racks of clothing all around us. Like it was just the worst possible setting, but it was the only place on set that had any lighting. And I knew that if I shot it with my flash, it would be too overexposed because the tattoo is so small right here and it's so thin that I knew it would be like really overexposed and look like shit. So I was like, we're going to the back of the dry cleaner and we're gonna fucking get her done. And we did it, and that was it. It was literally so fast.
So you didn't have any external lighting. This was all literally using natural light in a fucking dry cleaner?
Natural lighting, like 8,000 ISO or some shit, like so grainy.
Holy shit.
Just done in a 1 minute. And then, yeah, that was it. And she's so cool. She's just literally the most normal person. So she's just down for whatever. And we did it. And I told her, look that way, chin up, da 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 da. It was like boom, 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 done. 60 seconds. Did you do like assuming that you knew that you were gonna shoot this? Did you kind of scout that spot out during the day and kind of plan? No. You literally just were like, this is the spot we're shooting? No idea. We had just finished shooting, and that was again the only place that had light. So I was like, shadows are so fucking I guess we're going into the dry cleaner. Yeah, it was.
The shadows makes it look like you shaped light in every way possible in this space. Yeah. And that's what I think is so fucking cool, is that
there was like one light bulb hanging over in the video. There's like a poker table and there's one light hanging over it. And that was it.
I love that. And I said this
to you before. Fake it till you make it, man. You just gotta make shit work.
But I love that. Think about this. Like, think about literally not even maybe 5 years ago, how much money people would spend on a fucking album artwork shoot. And then the point now where they're able to play off creators, play off people that are on their feet, on their toes, ready to capture shit at a high level. The fact that you spent years being able to do that, and that turned into this. And like, think of what this will do to catapult you into more jobs in the future, being able to do profile pictures like this or portraits that could be used on like magazine covers. It's just from doing crazy.
Because dude, I was like, again, like I was that kid. Like I was literally that kid who like I'll never forget. I bought every single one of Avril Lavigne's albums the day they came out when I was a kid. And I would buy multiple albums so that I could cut up all the artwork and put it on my walls. Right. And like that, I loved album artwork so much. Like it was my favorite part about getting a CD and like opening it and like unpackaging all of it and like looking at the album artwork and then like putting it all over my wall and like listening to the song as I read the lyrics to Avril Lavigne crying in my room when I was like 8, you know, like, and then all these years later, I'm shooting album artwork and now I'm working on some projects that I can't talk about that I'm like designing album artwork for like my heroes. And that shit is crazy to me. And it's like, life is just so full circle and amazing. And like, it's just so weird. And all of those artwork pieces that I shot have like never been, I don't think have ever been planned to be artwork, except for like a recent one that I did with Rebecca Black, where we went into it and we were like, okay, we need to shoot these 3 things, blah, 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 blah.
Who?
Like,
do you say Rebecca Black?
Yeah.
The Friday?
Fucking my queen. Yes.
Wow. I think I tried to DM her to get her on the podcast at one point.
She is literally everything. She's a queer icon now. She is just so beautiful, so kind. I would literally do anything for Rebecca Black. I love her. And I think her story is so important.
Yeah, I'm sure her story is going to be nuts. Fuck.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Sorry. Continue your thought. I interrupted you. My bad. What were you
no,
saying?
It's just like, yeah, all of those things like are every time I shoot a piece of artwork to me, like it genuinely makes me super emotional when I like see it and I'm like in my car and I'm like, I click it on Spotify and then my photo shows up on the thing. And like, I just did, my photo was All Time Low's album artwork. And like, we didn't even plan that either. Like, it was just like we did this shoot spontaneously because our Airbnb was right by this mountain range in Palm Springs. And I was like, I just really want to go shoot right there where we could see it from the house. Like, I just had this feeling to like go, there's something about this thing. And then we did it and they're like, oh yeah, this is the artwork now. Like, this is it. Shit. And I was like, okay, great. It's never planned. It's always like really spontaneous. And like, I did EP artwork for Paris, and it was literally because we were out shooting like a rock sound piece or something, and Lynn had this concept of like a white car and like whatever. So we get to the beach in the middle of the night and there's this random white car just sitting on the beach.
What the fuck?
And we were like, what? And we started shooting around it, and she was like, yeah, we can't, like, these have to be our album cover. These can't be given to anybody else. And I was like, well, okay,
yeah,
it's fine. We'll shoot other stuff. But it's just, it's always like super impulsive, and it's never, I don't know. It's like the funnest part about it. It's just like thinking on your toes and making shit work, and never like, I find that if I over plan something, it just like never goes how I want it to go. Do you ever feel like that? If I like, I could plan until the day I die, but like the shot that we planned or the concept we planned is like never what we actually end up liking the most. It's always this other random shit that we didn't even intend to shoot, but we just did because we could. Like, I think there's something really beautiful about that, and just like spontaneous art, and like how that is like catching people in that moment of like unexpectedness and like confidence and like fun, when they're just like not expecting it to be anything, and they feel a lot more comfortable in that moment. I think there's so much to be said about that, like pulling somebody in to take a photo and doing it in 60 seconds ends up being an album cover seen by millions of people, but it was just like not planned at all. It was just like in the moment.
177 million people on Instagram alone. That's fucking ludicrous. You know what I mean? Those numbers are just like, don't even make sense. Fucking
weirdest, most magical thing that's ever happened to me. I will never understand how I ended up where I am ever, but I'm really
it's called thankful. Hard work, champion. That's what it's called. It's hard work over and over again, doing it over and over again. Okay, to end this. Got you though. No, I know. That just flew by so quick. Remember how scared I was to do this, and now I'm like, what? Yeah, no, we could do this for hours. That's great.
Thank you so much. We got you seasoned. I'd never feel comfortable talking like this, and you've really just like created a space where I really can. So I really appreciate it. I've wanted to say all this shit for so long and talk about these things, and I just never feel like I can. So thank you.
I'm glad. No, this is awesome. And I think that everyone's going to enjoy hearing this shit, because it's cool as fuck. And I'm glad you're open to talking about it. I want to end this with like a kind of a final question for you is, having worked with all these different, ranges of different types of artists, and then specifically now, like some of the top artists in the world as far as like popularity goes, like Selena being one of them, but like the teams that are behind them, the people that are hiring you, what do you think it is about these people that they see in you that makes them value you as a creator, someone that they would want to have on their team?
Oh, that's a good one. I think, I feel like now that I'm at this point in my life that I've never been in, where I feel, as much as my anxiety will vary, I've never been in a point in my life where I feel so confident and sure of myself and comfortable. And I think that I take that attitude with me everywhere I go now. And I just try to be a light. Like I try to be a light on set. I try to be a light for the artist. I try to be a source of comfort for everyone. And I think that I was not always like that, because I used to be so insecure and feel so competitive. And I think I'm really grateful that I'm in this mindset now and like attitude in life where I feel very like open and giving and try to make everyone comfortable. And I think that that's why people hire me. Like that's why my clients come back to me, is because I just really try to hear people. And I do go into shoots with that mindset of like, I want to make this artist feel as beautiful as I can, as comfortable as I can, as empowered as I can. And I want their team to know that. And like, that's just the mindset I go into everything with. And I really do feel like, I know a lot of clients who have told me before that they just like appreciate my energy on set, because when I'm working, I'm just very like, okay, whatever, like most stony vibes ever, just like very chill, very relaxed. I don't get stressed out when I'm working. I'm just like in the zone. And I think that says a lot. If you're like, you know, I've worked with photographers before who are just like very like manic and like kind of all over the place and like stressing everybody else out around them. And like, I don't ever want to be that person.
Yeah,
like
no.
I just try to keep all my sets very small, very relaxed. Like I'm burning Palo Santo or sage. I have candles going. Like that's my energy.
Yeah.
That's like my 2020 energy is like fucking chill, you know?
Right.
And I just try to create that space. And like, even when I'm like on set of a music video, it's just like, that's my favorite thing to do, is be on set doing behind the scenes, because I really want to direct one day. And I just try to be like very out of the way. It's just use common sense, like
Right.
be respectful of the environment you're in, like, and use common sense. Like I've never posted photos without getting approval from the artist. Like, don't be stupid, just use common sense and like be respectful of the fact that like when you're getting brought into an environment, you're there for a reason. And it's like a really sacred thing, whether it's a really small artist or a really big artist. Like you're there to be a part of this creativity and this like magic that they're creating. So honor
Right.
that all the time and just like carry that energy with you of like gratitude and like relax. Like don't be an added stress because everyone is already fucking stressed out. Like offer to help. Like I've shown up to set and like have helped people load shit in just because I'm there and I have nothing to do. And it's like,
Same.
you might as well just fucking help people around you. Like just be kind, be nice, be loving, be calm. That's my.
No, I'm giving you a crowd clapping, but I can also. It's well fucking said. I feel like it's an important rule, and I think a lot of people may skip that shit because I feel like they know what their objectives are
or
for the day.
Or they want
but
the clout. They just want to post that photo right away, and it's like,
damn, chill.
Why would
champion.
you ever post a photo of anyone without their permission? Like, don't do that shit.
Right.
You will be so fucked if you do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's like the biggest, most disrespectful thing you could ever do, I think.
Love it. Thank you so much for doing this shit.
Brand.
I can't wait to have you in here. It's gonna be
this
awesome.
This was so fun.
Yeah, I'm glad.
I can't wait. I can't wait to share it. I'm
excited. We will share
excited.
links to your Instagram and all that in the bio, Avi. So make sure to throw that follow down if you're not following already. But thank you. We'll do this soon.
Thank you. Yeah, seriously, this was so fun. You're the best, and everything you're doing is great. Thank you for empowering creatives and just like being a leader in the community. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, cool. Bye.
that's it for episode 187 with Ashley Osborn. Huge shout out to Ashley for coming on the show. Make sure to subscribe to Black with No Cream podcast if you are not already. And like I said at the beginning, I'm giving out my phone number to all the podcast listeners and anyone in the Black with No Cream community. I would love to hear from you. Your feedback means the world to me. So shoot me a text, 319-209-9041. Tell me what kind of creator you are so I can save you in my contacts. I cannot wait to talk with y'all. It's been nuts seeing how many people are messaging me right now and trying to keep track of it. It's pretty crazy, but honestly, I fucking love this shit. So yeah, say what's up. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Black with No Cream. Send us a screenshot of you listening to this episode and tell us your takeaways so we can, reply to you and tell you thank you fucking God for listening to this episode because you're the shit and we wouldn't do this if you weren't listening. So thank you so much for that. All right, that's it for today. Enjoy the work week. Keep creating. We will see you in a few days, you bitch.